So that's 2 per column or 2 per pillar, plus 1 on top of one of them. If you do like the top piece to add pipes and stuff like that. So we're gonna drill a total of 5 holes right here. Okay, so we like not counting the first one that we started with because that was not part of this sprue. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna skip over the one we already did essentially, and then I'm gonna drill 4 more holes. So we're gonna do 2 high and 2 low. So we're gonna just pick a couple of these, and I'm gonna drill 2 right off the bat, just without even paying attention to which is which. So we're essentially just gonna line it up with that little guide right there, and then very gently and not facing ourselves, we're just gonna drill these holes out exactly with the guide. As flat and as straight as possible. And you'll notice that the way they're on the sprue here, I'll show you in a sec. Every other one is upside down. So if you drill high and then low, you're going to basically be drilling the same spot out because one sprue is upside down and the other one is right side up. So now you'll see we drilled out these 2 holes right here, and you'll see that one's high because this one's facing right side up. This one's upside down, so that's a low, even though. So we got 1 high and 1 low so far. So now we're going to come over here and we're going to do 1 high and 1 low as well. And again, I'll put the sizes of like the drill bits and everything in the notes. So we've got right now 2 high and about 2 low. You can do them however you want. Don't get too crazy with magnets though, because you will run into problems with them if you have too many and they're all fighting each other, trying to escape and everything, and sucking your miniatures over because you magnetize them as well, etc., etc. After I do a little drill out though, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife and run it along that edge and just clean it out. Just a tiny bit. Because the way I have the drill bit set up size wise in comparison to the magnet and the hole, it's like extremely tight. So that way like the glue is much less important, and I don't have to worry about these things ripping off over time as the glue fails. Because anybody that's dealt with magnets, like 10 years later, like the magnets start ripping off all over the place, and if your models are painted and everything, like it can be a nightmare. You got to go back and repair them, etc. So now I have all these holes. I'm just going to take my super glue and I'm just going to put a dab in a couple of these holes and just try to get it like around the hole as best you can. But again, like I said, pressure is going to be holding this in, and then a couple layers of paint, etc., etc. And then again, we're going to take our guide piece, which is already magnetized, so we know we're putting our magnet in the right direction. And I'm just going to push it in just enough to get it started. And I'm going to do a couple of them at a time just because I'm all about that assembly line life. And then all I'm going to do is, again, once I get them all started in there, I'm going to just take the back of my razor blade. I'm going to keep it flat here. Make sure you don't grab it or use like something more safe than a razor blade. I'm just going to push them in. Get them pretty flat. Like I said, they don't have to be perfect, but if you use something flat against the surface and get the surface completely flat, like I said, you really do got to push these things in here. Some of them. That one. I want it to go in just a little bit more. Hang on one second. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so there we got it. We got our magnet set in, and they're basically flush in there. Like perfect. And now all we're going to do is take your little accessories and they stick right on. And there you go. And that's it. I mean, it's still on the sprue, and we already magnetized, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces that quick We're going to do this one next, drill that hole back out, and then we have our accessories. And now I'm going to show you one other little trick I figured out here. What I like to do is take the one with the skull on it right here, and you could do it with a different one, but I like to use that one. And then just take your razor blade, and we're just going to carve away the skull. You got to just kind of go around it in a circle. All we're doing is just trying to like flatten it up so the skull is just gone. And then we're just going to take the razor blade now and point first right in the middle. Careful not to poke towards ourselves either. And we're just going to put like a tiny little dimple with it. There's a tool for this too, if you rather use the tool as well, obviously. But then we're going to take our drill bit, and we're going to use that little dimple where we started the hole at, where the skull used to be. And we're not going to drill all the way through. We're just basically trying to take it down a little bit. And it may take a couple tries, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, you can kind of aim the blade or the drill bit as it goes in, but just go slow because you don't want to go too deep. But all you're trying to do is just round out that position. So now, can you see that thing? Now we have this hole that's completely just rounded out in there, okay? So now all we're going to do is take our glue again, put a dab of glue right in that hole. We don't even have to worry about the facing because there's already a magnet in the back. We already put it in there. So we're just going to take our other magnet and drop him in, let him go wherever he wants. It's going to center right in the middle. And then we'll just take our razor blade and just make sure it's in like a pretty good position, which it is like perfectly centered. Give it a press, and now that one's in there. And what that piece is now, that one's double magnetized. And what these are good for, oops, that's not even one of them. That one. That's a double magnetized one. What these are good for is when you go to attach these ones on, you want to have like a little bit more strength for some of these connections. And essentially, like if you go to take like one of these where the magnet's not exposed at all, it will easily attach to the side of one of our, like I said, I didn't magnetize all of mine because I discovered this after I had rushed to put some together. But you'll notice that you can take this piece right here, and that's one of our regular ones, and it sits down in there nice, and it's not going to move around, and it's solid. But when you take our piece right here, we take that right here, it barely gets a connection. It's like very weak, okay, because there's so much plastic in between it. So what we do is we use one of these guys that we just made, and then we put that right there, let it sit in place. You can hear how much stronger the magnet is because there's two of them now. And then when we take that guy right there, look how much stronger our connection is. And then we don't have to worry about it falling all over the place and you know, the problems that we were having before. So there's like a couple little hacks. And then you can, it might be easier to see some of this in like a regular picture versus trying to show you on camera here. But essentially for these little monitor screens, all I did was the same thing, just drilled out a little hole. So if you look right where it is, you can kind of see the positioning. And remember, it's backwards. But if you line it up on the pillar, it's essentially the bottom left-hand corner of the computer screen is like where it's at. But when you flip it over, it's going to look like the bottom right-hand corner. But it's almost centered just underneath that little piece right there. And if you put your magnet right there, then you can take your pillar on either the top one or the bottom one, depending on how tall your dudes are. And you can just set it right there, and it's a little accessory for when you're not using that piece. And basically like fills out the pillar perfectly. And then can do one for the little like tank as well. And again, it's the same thing. We're gonna flip it right side up so you know the nozzle's facing down, like it was getting ready to pour out the little spigot. And then if we spin it around there, we'll notice like you see the little support there. If you turn it, how the magnet is very hard to show it, but essentially you cut away part of the support right there and then sit it down in the support so it gets as much connection as possible, and then that'll sit solid. And then you can take these guys and put them in wherever you want as well. And you don't have to worry about like too much problems with like magnetizing stuff unless you get too crazy with it. You can move all your guys around without problems. You know, every once in a while you'll drop something and there'll be like a chain reaction of magnets. They like suck towards each other and everything. But like all these guys are magnetized. I did all the arms on these guys so I could change out their equipment, so you don't have to repaint a guy every time you change your roster or whatever. So all these weapons are magnetized. I did like the shield arms and weapons as well on these bros. So you can, it's cool because you can position them one and change it around so they like look more dynamic or in a specific spot or for like a picture or whatever. But also so you can change out the gear, because one of the crazy things about Necromunda is like at any time you could like, you know, need to sell some gear to keep a guy alive, or all of a sudden you get an upgrade and you just finished painting the guy. It's almost like, oh, do I even want to finish him or should I wait till the end of the campaign? So, you know, there's no excuses here. You can keep building on everything as you go and keep magnetizing and, you know, keep customizing. So, but that was like way longer than I wanted to, guys. But essentially we just magnetized like this sprue on camera together, and you can see it really doesn't take that much time. It's, you know, really not that expensive. I think you end up using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have a double one is 10, and then you put one in here. So you end up using 11 of these magnets per sprue, and you have 6 of these sprues in the set. So just these is like 66 magnets, but I think I bought like 500 of them for like $20 of this size right here. So, you know, it's not that expensive. You could probably magnetize this whole set with 500 magnets, I think, pretty easily. And there's a lot of other stuff I magnetize as well, and I recommend it. And I'll show some other videos of that stuff. I did show like the lifts and everything. The piping is really easy too. It's the same exact thing. You're just gonna drill out a hole. I push in one magnet, and then I'll put an extra one if I need to get a better connection on something. If it seems weak or whatever, you can just leave an extra magnet attached to it. You know, or as you're like building or changing it before games or whatever, if something seems weak. But that's basically it. I'm going to be expanding on this Necromunda board as well, and we're going to play some games and some battle reports. But I did want to get this video out and you know, start producing content for the community and share this little Easter egg that I found, because honestly it is awesome and I feel like it changes the game. Like before that I just had all these like naked pillars all over the board. Basically I didn't decide where I wanted to glue stuff yet. I wasn't sure like how I wanted the board set up, so I was leaving as few things glued as possible but still stable. And now, you know, changing out, I mean, that changes the game, because now I'm not like, oh, I don't want to glue this, oh, I don't want to glue that. Now all of a sudden I have all these extra accessories all over the pillars, and you know, it really adds a lot of flavor to the board. And even as you start adding some of the barricades and everything like that, like it's crazy how it fills everything out. But I've been moving everything around, and I didn't want to get it too cluttered and trying to get the best camera angle. And obviously I'm getting ready to paint this. I got the board set up, and there's another video on how we made this board and start to finish for what it is. You know, basically in a couple hours you can make it and have it set, and there's better pictures of it. I don't want to mess with everything now, but essentially it's just planned out for the deployment zones. So there's like a black and yellow stripe that goes around it, and that's like starts at 2 inches from the edge and goes to 3. So if it's like the attacker or the defender, it shows like how far you're allowed to be in on the table edges. And then the central part has a big circle, and the circle is for if it's center, you're allowed 6 inches out, or if there's like a prisoner, it's 6 inches out from their base, so it's like the inside of the center of the second. And then we did like the Necromunda skull in the middle, and you know, a couple other cool things like that. Super modular, super easy to paint, took almost no time. We did it with like patterns and spray cans, and then just went in and did a little freehand afterwards. So again, give us a like. We're just now getting the channel off the ground, looking to share like tons of customizations and you know, painting tutorials, tips, ways to just get stuff on the table and have a lot more fun, and you know, be able to take better pictures and enjoy the hobby a lot more, because you don't feel guilty for having like a bunch of plastic models that, you know, it's like embarrassing taking a picture of them. At least this game is like brand new, so you got to work up to something. But you know, it's easy to build this set and barely even play on it before, you know, years go by and you haven't painted it. So in this, we're gonna build it up from scratch together, and essentially like you know, build the campaign set, build the terrain set, and expand it into a complete underhive. And same with the channel, we're going to expand that into an underhive as well. Or no, wait,